This has been a presentation of SBE 15, New York City.
Hey everybody, I'm Doug Watson. I'm with Linkup Communications, been with Linkup for about a year. We are a content delivery company, mainly focused on satellite delivery. We do a little bit of everything from equipment, installation. We have space segment that we lease. We do just pretty much anything that has to do with satellite delivery we can take care of. Currently, right now, we're in the middle of the 5G mitigation. Gosh, I got started in radio in Dallas, Texas. Actually, Arlington. Our studios were in Arlington. Was it Dave Davis? Was that who was telling me there was University of Texas at Arlington? We were right up the road at 411 Ryan Plaza in Arlington. And I spent 18 years there. I left there and became the chief engineer at Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR. Spent almost 14 years there and left there and went to work for Mark and Karen at Linkup Communications a little over a year ago. So that's kind of my background at each place. In Dallas, we had a KU band uplink that we uplinked to our affiliate stations. At MRN, we had an uplink, a C-band uplink at our studios that we uplinked and backhauled to Westwood One in Denver, and they distributed our programming. Plus, we had a mobile C-band truck that went to the races with us, and we uplinked directly from the track to Westwood One, and they distributed the race for us. So that's kind of my background with radio and satellite delivery. What we've been doing lately is the C-band mitigation. I'm sure you guys all remember, gosh, a few years back when Congress came out and said we really need to have broadband across the United States that everybody can have access to. They went to the FCC and said, let's figure out how to do this broadband things. The FCC looked around, looked at that 3,500 to 4 gig range, that the lower part of the C-band there, mainly because there were only about 1,000 registered users at that time. What had happened was AT&T had stopped using the 4 gig point-to-point links. And so there was really not a whole lot of reason to register your downlinks anymore, simply because you didn't need that protection from that 4 gig link. And so then when all this started, Intelsat, SES, they formed the C-band alliance. And I'm sure you guys remember a couple of years ago, the push to register your C-band downlinks. So everybody registered, they pushed for everybody to register the C-band downlinks so that they could show an accurate number of who was actually using these downlinks in this frequency band. They had about 17,000 registered at that time, and they're still guessing that probably there's 50% more that didn't get registered, didn't know about it, didn't find out about it. We've run into a couple of those with what we've been doing as well. Let me share my screen real quick, and we will. Let's see here. Oh, I am way down in the presentation. Let me run back here to the first. How's that? Can you see that? Good.
Yeah, it looks good.
All right. So what happened was the Congress asked the FCC to go ahead and look at this broadband thing. And so the FCC came out with an order. The FCC order added a mobile allocation, except aeronautical mobile, to the 3.7 to 4 gig band. They want to transition 280 megahertz plus a 20 megahertz guard band from incumbent use to flexible use in the contiguous United States by December 5th of 2025 through a commission-led public auction. This will provide eligible space station operators with the option to accelerate the clearing according to the following accelerated timeline. They want to clear the bottom 120 megahertz, 3.7 to 3.82 by December 5th of 2021, and clear the remaining 180 meg, 3.8 to 4 gig by December 5th of 2023. And if they met those benchmarks, they would have an accelerated payment from the flexible use licenses. This also required the incumbent fixed station licenses in the contiguous United States to relocate their point-to-point links to other bands by December the 5th of 2023. The order also provided both incumbent satellite operators a fixed station license reimbursement of reasonable relocation costs paid by the flexible use licensees as a condition on their license. So the part of the deal is that FCC needs to make you whole. We'll see that through this whole thing. Establish a relocation payment clearinghouse to manage the intake, payout, and auditing of the relocation funds, mediate cost-related disputes, and provide progress reports to the commission. It also established a relocation coordinator to coordinate the migration and filtering of incumbent earth stations to ensure uninterrupted service during the following transition, and adopt a service and technical rules for the flexible use licenses and the 280 meg of spectrum designated for transition to flexible use. So this is what we're talking about, the C-band downlink side of things, 3.8 to 4.2 gig. So the key entities outlined in the FCC order was that the FCC auctioned the spectrum. They're the final arbitrator for all issues. The relocation payment clearinghouse approves the cost reimbursements for filtering and transitioning the upgrades. The relocation coordinator manages the clearing schedule appointed by the satellite owners. The space station operators decided to choose the accelerated transition. They all took the accelerated transition plan. The Earth station operators may elect cost reimbursement to remain on C-band or accept an opt-out amount. That's us. And we have to facilitate the satellite operator transition plans. So kind of at the last minute, I'm sure you guys have kept up with this. At the last minute, the FCC came in and said, hey, if you want to do your own, we will opt out and we'll give you, I believe it was $8,948 per downlink. But that takes you off of our responsibility. You're on your own at that point. And they gave a very short period of time to decide that. A lot of people took it though. A lot of people took that opt-out. So here's the timeline. I'm going to run through these. There's a lot of these. Most of these are already done. The Clearinghouse Search Committee convened in March of 2020. The satellite operators filed their accelerated relocation elections May the 29th of 2020. And then they all chose the accelerated relocation. June the 5th of 2020, the public notice if 80% of the clearing super majority was met. And if so, clearing coordinator committee was formed, and that's all done. June the 12th, the satellite operators filed their transition plans. June the 13th, the window for stakeholder comments closed. The Clearinghouse and Clearing Coordinator Search Committees announced their choice on July the 31st, 2020. The satellite operators submitted a revision to the transition plans. And the auction began on December the 8th, and I'm sure you heard about that, $90 billion in revenue for auctioning off the frequencies. 30-day trigger, the Earth stations decide after they release the public notice for the Earth station opt-out. So you had a very short time there to get that $8,948 per downlink. But that 30-day trigger closed and then it was over. So where we are now is we're in the phase one deadline. The 3700 to 3820 has to be cleared in the top 46 PEAs by December 5th of this year. And that's what we're doing right now. So those top 46 markets are being cleared. For the radio folks, let me see. Let's do this first. The 7 defined components in the space station operator transition plan. So each of the space station operators put out a transition plan, and they have a list of existing space stations, satellites that must be repacked. Number of new satellites required to maintain sufficient capacity post-transition. So some of the satellites were getting older. They were going to just let those die, and they have some open slots. But I think at this point, there are 7 planned satellites to be launched in the next couple of years to add capacity in the 200 megahertz that we're going to have left on different satellites so that they can handle everybody that's currently using the system. The specific grooming plan for migrating the customer services to the upper 200 meg, that's this plan that the satellite operators are getting together. Who do we move where? It's kind of a chess game so that we don't lose service for anybody while we're moving. List of necessary technology upgrades required to complete the repack plan. So some of these repacks, some of these moves are going to require changing compression schemes so we can pack more people in smaller places. Number and location of Earth stations receiving signals from the operator satellites, and that's part of that. That's how many folks are out there that need this service. Estimate of the number of Earth station antennas that will require retuning or repointing, and a specific timeline and milestone plan for these changes to happen. So the satellite owners, part of their transition plan, they were required to deliver their plans to the FCC by June the 12th. And it was changed to June the 19th. And Intelsat, SES and Intelsat have both delivered their plans to the FCC, and they're both available online. I believe they're available on the FCC's website as well as Satellite Today's websites. And the satellite owners will determine the capacity plan, the timing plan, and the technology plan. Who goes where, what do we change, and when. The FCC plan also includes additional satellite launches to increase capacity. And they're building a comprehensive plan that requires engagement from satellite users and their affiliates. In this plan, there are the qualified Earth stations, non-qualified Earth stations, and non-responsive folks. A qualified Earth station is defined as only those in the FCC's International Bureau database. So if you registered your downlink, you're a qualified Earth station. Unless they elect to opt out, if you took the opt-out, then you're not part of this. The qualified Earth stations receive two primary benefits: cost reimbursement and continued C-band operating protection. A lot of big companies took the opt-out. The other part of this is you get the cost reimbursement is for filtering and for modifications required due to the repack. So if you're required to move your satellite, SES comes to you and says, we need you to move to a different bird because we're repacking you over here. And your satellite will not see that bird because of a building or a tower or something. And you're a qualified Earth station. The FCC out of the auction proceedings will pay to move your dish to a place where you can see the bird. They will make you whole with that. We have done a couple of those so far. It's also and so they have to make you whole. They facilitate. If there's a compression scheme change, you change from DVB-S2, DVB-S2X, that equipment is going to be paid for out of that auction to change those compression schemes so that you can get, again, you're made whole. The qualified Earth stations must facilitate the activities for an accelerated clearing as well. So you've got to cooperate with these folks to get this done this year in the top 46 markets. Non-responsive Earth stations may be waived. If you don't, I know that most engineers that I know, including myself, are a little skeptical, but when somebody calls and says, hey, what are your downlinks? What are you receiving on them? Where, what satellites are they pointed at? Those calls have been made and they're from the folks, the SES and Intelsat's folks looking for information on your downlinks. If you don't get back with them, you can be kicked out as a non-responsive downlink. So I'll have a couple of links here in a minute. If you've heard from those folks and haven't responded, or haven't heard from those folks and you're a qualified Earth station, you probably ought to get in touch with them and let them know. No Earth station is protected for all 500 megahertz. The FCC did not accept a gateway concept. There was an idea for leaving a couple of uplinks for overseas traffic on each coast, and they rejected that idea. Telemetry and tracking and control protected through 5th of December 2025, and then that's non-protected. And then they're looking to compare affiliate lists versus the FCC database, and that's where those inquiries to clients come in. So there are a couple of different filters. There are two parts of this plan. There's the plan that happens this year, and then the plan that happens 2 years from now. I'll point out something in this picture, something that we've discovered in the field. The way we're putting this filter on with the sensor and the C-band LNB on the left back there, and the opening on the filter on the right, we have found that that's the best way to put them together. I don't know why. I don't know why it's a little worse if you flip it over and put them on the same side, but that's the way that we have figured out how to put them together, and that's the way that seems to work the best for us. The red filter covers this section of the C-band. It's everything. So what we've had happen is in the top 46 markets, in an effort to make this happen without anybody losing service, they have left a little bit of the everything below 4 gig to transition things into for a couple of years. So the red filter, and this has mainly been on video folks, the radio folks have all moved above 4 gig already, transition their frequencies up. The video folks, you're going to put a red filter on, and it blocks everything below 3820 and everything above 4200. So it gives you that 3820 to 4200 window for the next couple of years. For the radio folks, we're putting a blue filter on. The blue filter is the final filter. So if you got a red filter before December of this year, somebody's going to come back and put a blue filter on before December of 2023. Because before December of 2023, we've got to be we got to vacate everything below 4 gig. And so that's where the blue filter comes in. And that's what we've been doing with radio, is everything is below 4 gig is blocked. They've moved above 4 gig for their frequencies, and that's what we've been putting on. This is a spectrum shot of a blue filter before and after installation. So the shot on the left is before the installation. The shot on the right is after the installation. You can see it's a band pass filter. Everything above and below has been blocked. The recent TV pack tells us a few things about how the FCC works. All invoices for reimbursement must be specific to a site. The site registration, the downlink, not the station call letters, must be on invoices. Vendor's EIN must be on invoice. Equipment IDs must be accurate, and double check all math. Spreadsheet rounding could cause your invoice to be rejected. USSI, for the SES folks, USSI is handling all the filter installations and modifications. So if you've got a satellite pointed at SES and you haven't heard from USSI asking about your downlinks, you might want to shoot them an email at cbandhelp@ses.com and let them know that you've got a registered downlink and you haven't heard from anybody yet. For Intelsat, USSI is primarily doing the video side of things. Wesco is primarily doing the radio side of things. ATCI is handling the simulsats, and Harmonic is doing the equipment shipments. Most of the filtering for Intelsat will not start until June of 2021. They're spending the first half of 2021 grooming their services for the satellite, for the transition, trying to figure out where everything's going to go and what everybody's going to do. If you have questions, there's a email in there as well. For cbandinfo@intelsat.com. If you've got an Intelsat satellite received, then you haven't heard from them, you probably want to get a hold of them and let them know that you haven't heard from anybody. We've been doing these for a couple of 2 or 3 months now. We've run into a couple of different situations where we had a retirement village that was receiving some TV, and they called us. They needed the dish pointed to a new satellite. The service had moved. We went and pointed the dish. It was an 8-foot mesh dish, and they had moved to a DVB-S2 program, and the 8-foot mesh dish would not receive the signal. We could point it. We could see that it was on the bird, peak it, but it was not enough antenna, not enough gain to receive the signal. And I'm not sure that they had ever heard of the whole registration or anything. So I'm not sure where they are now. We proposed a new antenna for them, but I haven't heard back from them. Also got a frantic call from some folks out west that was a cable head end. And we had a long talk about the registration, which he told me that he had gotten notice of and he thought was extortion because they were charging to register the downlinks. I think that SES was reimbursing folks for registering, but he had decided it was extortion and not worth it. And he's now looking at having to replace on his own without any reimbursement or anything, quite a few antennas because they just won't work with what's happening now with those folks. There are 2 filter companies out there, Microwave Filter Company and Alga are really the 2 official filters. We've been installing Alga filters everywhere. I've heard stories of had an engineer approach me and ask about our filters. He had been online looking for 5G filters, and they were over $1,100 online. And that's about 3 times what we sell them for. So careful where if you're doing your own install, careful where you're getting your filters. I'm originally from Texas, and anytime we had a storm come through, we had what we called roofing cowboys would show up. Anybody with a pickup truck and a hammer all of a sudden was a roofer. And they were trying to get insurance money. And I'm sure you guys have heard about all this stuff. Hearing a little bit about that with these kind of things, if you're doing a self-install or you're doing you opted out be sure you know who you're dealing with if you pay somebody to come do your filter. SES has required a lot of paperwork. They like to do a proof of performance on the antenna before anything is done. They like to do a proof of performance after the filter is installed. They want to make sure that it's performing like it should. They asked for spectrum shots. There's a lot of documentation that they asked for. So we've been doing that for our customers that are opt-out customers. We go ahead and do all the paperwork for them and get it back to them, because I'm sure at some point in the future, you get a 5G transmitter that's causing some issues with your antenna, and you call the FCC to complain. The first question they're going to say is, did you take the opt-out, and what did you do with that money? So when you have this done, if you're doing the opt-out and doing it yourself, make sure you have the paperwork so you can prove at some point, pull out this documentation and say, hey, this thing worked when we did it. Everything was good, the spectrum was clear, and now we've got a 5G transmitter encroaching. I've seen the transmitters here in Charlotte going up already. They're taking down light poles and putting them back up with a transmitter on top of them. And they're pretty densely packed, mainly happening around downtown Charlotte in those areas. Haven't seen anything. I live in Statesville, North Carolina, about 40 minutes north of Charlotte. I haven't seen anything up here, but we are seeing it coming. So that's about everything I've got. If anybody's got any questions.
Hey, Doug, what area of the country do you cover?
We cover everywhere. Like I told you earlier, our company is based in Panama City, Florida. I live just north of Charlotte, North Carolina. Our main installer lives in Lexington, Kentucky. You heard Mark introduce himself earlier. They're running across South Texas and Louisiana and Mississippi and Georgia right now. Robert, our main installer, will be in West Virginia and in New York and Kansas and Missouri within the next couple of weeks. So what we've tried to do is, if you're not in a hurry and you can wait till we're in your area, we can give you a better deal, because we can spread the travel out. If you're in a hurry, I can certainly give you a quote on coming over to your place and installing a filter today if you'd like. But if you're not in a hurry and let us do it on our timeline, it's most likely we're going to be in the area at some point.
All right, let's open the floor for some questions. We'll just ask everybody here, if you have a question, just unmute and ask away.
I've got one. It's Conrad here.
Hey, Conrad.
Hey, Doug. Sorry. Excuse me. So 2 questions. One was, you said that you're seeing these sites light up now. Mm-hmm. Was there any restriction on the cell companies as far as their dates to be able to go live, or are they allowed to just start doing this now?
I'm seeing the antennas going up. They're not supposed to fire up till after December 5th of this year.
Okay.
So that December 5th deadline is to get those top 46 markets moved above 4 gig or at least above 3.8, and so that they can start firing up. If you have a T-Mobile phone, they've got some 5G in the 600 megahertz band. And I'm seeing that in Charlotte, but I don't believe that it's in the C band yet. I don't believe they're supposed to fire up until after December 5th of this year.
So they're supposed to give us the time to get these installed before they start firing.
That's okay. Yeah, that's been part of the whole deal, is that they have to give us the time to transition so that they're not interfering. Correct. Now, have some of them fired up? I can't answer that question. I don't know, but you know how that goes.
I do. And then the other thing I was going to ask is, with the filters that you are installing, are you seeing insertion loss or signal degradation significant, or is it, are you running into any problems with, on the edge reception being affected by putting these in?
We were told initially that it would be a half dB or less of insertion loss. What we have experienced in practice is that it can be up to 3 dB insertion loss. Mm-hmm. What we've been doing is pulling those back off and putting another filter on, simply because that's not an acceptable loss. In a lot of places. So I don't know if the filter doesn't have electronics in it. It's a passive filter. So I don't know if there's like a machining chip inside somewhere. I don't know if they've been thoroughly, I have to think they've been thoroughly cleaned and tested, but we have been seeing a little bit of loss on some of them. A lot of the sites that I've shown up to, we can keep at or gain a little bit of EBNO based on the fact that we can peak the antenna up, because a lot of places haven't had anything done to them in a long time. Antenna will sag a little bit. There'll be bees in the feed horn, those kind of things. And so a lot of places we show up, it's a wash, but we have seen some loss in some.
The other, related to that is, would there be a way to make up some of that loss with a better LNB? Do they make them where they have better gain on them or whatever?
We still use the 3220 Norsats everywhere. I don't know if there's something with more gain out there, but good question. I could certainly find an answer to that.
Good. Hey, Doug and Conrad, this is John. Yeah, we are seeing that insertion loss, and just in this week, we put in about 4 or 5 dishes on the filters on this trip moving, and we have seen as little as a half a dB and as much as almost 2 dB is on one of the ones, and we pulled that one off. So anything 2 dB and above, we're pulling off. But like Doug said, we're trying to peak the dish. Sometimes replace cable, do things like that. Try to do the easy stuff to gain a dB here or a dB there. But the 3220 is a really good LNB. There are a couple of other LNBs with more phase stable, but I don't know that it's going to help us make up any gain coming into the building. Now if it were a long run, cable run, might want to look at an inline amplifier or something like that, to boost the overall gain. We're doing 2 things. The dishes we're doing right now is just a collective. We're doing all of the C-band dishes right now for EMF, and we're going to EMF sites all over the country, doing their antennas. And part of the Telsat transition plan, because EMF buys C-band space from Telsat. They're on have been on Anik F1R for about 10 years, and as part of the repack, we have to move them to F3. So it's a dish move and a filter install, which is very similar to what the TV guys are going to see. As Doug was talking about the TV guys, you've got a situation where they can't go up above 4 gig yet. There's not enough space for all of the TV and cable content above 4 meg until those 7 satellites get launched. And we've got 200 meg in additional orbital slots. Hopefully some of those will have additional gain on the downlink side. But I think that the key thing is especially if you're a network like you are, is to talk to SES about can we rerun link budgets, looking at the new insertion loss. That in fact, one of the next things we're going to do for EMF is contact Telsat and say, look, we're seeing greater insertion loss than was put in the link budgets. Can we go back and get some more on spacecraft power? So
For a fee.
Yeah.
They'll charge. Yeah, of course.
Well, we could ask nicely. All they can say is no.
Got it. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Doug, it's Alan here. I have a question for you. Most of my most of my experiences with prime focus antennas. I've got a couple Cassegrain antennas, and I was concerned about the available real estate in the hub for putting the filter on with the LNB, especially if I've got a horizontal and vertical down, if there's going to be any issues to look forward to.
Wow, I haven't even thought about Cassegrain antennas or doing these with those. Everything that we've been dealing with is Protalin and some DH.
Yeah.
So everything's out on the feed horn, but that's a interesting. I'm gonna have to go back and look at some pictures now.
Well, that's going to be Doug. That's going to be a case by case basis on the manufacturer. I mean, I can't. I'm trying to think of the Andrew 4.5 meter Cassegrain. I can't believe there's enough room inside that 4.5 meter.
Yeah, this is I think mine was. This is an SA. I think it's a 10 meter.
Oh wow.
Yeah. In fact, no, I take it back. No, I have a couple of 7.3s that the CBS station is using.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was like having nightmares about that last night, about opening that hub up and trying to figure out how the hell to put those jam those filters in there.
We moved to Cassegrain last year, and if I remember correctly, in the one that we moved, the LNB pointed straight back out of the hub.
Right.
So I think the one like that obviously is going to be fairly easy to just put the filter in between. But if it was to the side, there's no way it would have fit.
No, unless I get a 90, put a 90 in there. Well, we'll see when we crack it open.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks very much. Appreciate that.
You bet.
Any other questions? Going once, twice, 3 times. I'll definitely want to thank Doug for his presentation.
Thanks for joining us. Please remember to subscribe to SBE 15 New York City.